So I was saying that you called me and told me there was a shooting in Illinois, and I assumed it was black people. And then I called my aunt and told her Nathan's about to call me for an episode. She's like, "What are you talking about today?" I was like, "The shooting, 4th of July." She was like, "Oh, I thought that was black people." And I was like, "No, that apparently were a bunch of Jewish people in that shooting." And she was
Yeah.
surprised, and I was too. And she said, "Oh, they're going after the Jews now." And I was like, yeah, I
Oh,
wanted
right.
to
Yeah.
tell her they've been
Yes.
going
Yeah.
after the Jews, but I didn't because she was having this moment of realization, and I just wanted her to have that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely important. I think that what we had been talking about with the guy who shot up the black grocery store in Buffalo, New York, we had talked about how he had signaled out three specific Jewish communities to be attacked. They were all in New Jersey, but they were all Jewish communities that he had singled out to be attacked in the future. And what we're looking at right now is another white supremacist. I mean, you should see that. You should see the dude who did it because he's like a white SoundCloud rapper.
I saw him. First, I did not know he was a rapper. I pulled up his picture, and Regina was like, "Oh, ew!" She just started screaming. She was like, "Yeah, he looked like he has nothing to live for." So I see why he shoot people. I mean, that's her. That's her personal preference. He was not very attracted to her, but yeah, he looks interesting.
Yeah. I was just thinking immediately to myself, I was like, I feel like a lot of people that murder Jews are like really coming up from the bottom and so are not attractive, like in the way where they can just, I don't know, they just look disheveled and fucked up. There was a kid in Cleveland who was from Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and he was down in Colorado, and this was within the year. And I talked about this with you. And this kid was murdered by like five kids who had all met in juvie. And they came out, they stole a car, they killed another guy to take his money. Then they went and they found a car to steal. And then they drove to a Jewish basically like a little like college for Orthodox Jews almost. It's called a yeshiva. So then they drove to this Jewish little college, tried to break into the main building because they got out of their car, tried to break into the main building, ended up murdering this Jewish kid and knocking one of the rabbis or rebbes or whatever he was, ended up knocking him unconscious. And the police were like, this was a drive-by shooting. And it was like they got out of their car to try to get into a Jewish facility to murder people. Who do you think's in a Jewish facility?
Bro,
I mean, it's wild. And then not just that. That was in the past year. I think within the past 2 years, there was also the guy who went to the Texas synagogue. And at first, the FBI was like, no, this isn't a hate crime. The dude was there specifically attacking American Jews because he was trying to get at like Israel, which is anti-Semitism. Because why would any random Jew just have something to do with it? Like the dude was, and they were like, it took them some while. They finally overturned it. But also with Buffalo, I feel like at the beginning of Buffalo, it took I remember it being quicker for them to realize it was a hate crime because I was so frustrated with this trend of ignoring anti-Semitism because people want to believe it doesn't exist. Like they fixed anti-Semitism, but nothing else. And it's just doesn't make sense.
did I tell you that I met the Jewish guy off of the dating app Bumble? The one I said I matched with him and he never wrote me back.
No.
I met him and it was
Okay.
super awkward. But I didn't meet him from Bumble. I was just in a coffee shop and I recognized him and I literally walked up to him and was like,
Oh.
Jew from Israel, Bumble. And he was like,
Yeah.
yes. And I was like, yes. And he was looking at me and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I just wanted to say hi. But you were talking about how Jewish hate crimes have been covered up as not hate crimes, just random occurrences.
Yeah, for like forever. for all of history pretty much. But yeah, so definitely super hard in America. I mean, you can find they're hard to find because how do you Google hate crimes that weren't called hate crimes, because most of them are buried in just, the U.S. is inundated with criminal cases all over. It's hard to keep track of exactly what, it's like you can't Google that, really. You just have to find the
Exactly.
cases over time, yeah, where it's like, okay, that's targeting Jews, and then usually people are like, we just don't understand why this would happen. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's because of racism, though. But that's why.
Yeah.
But because you don't want anti-Jewish racism to exist, you push it out so as to not, so that your narrative can continue to make sense.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Is
Yeah.
that it's the narrative. I mean, it's quite an evil thing to think that the people who are supposed to be serving justice and protecting the population have a bias and want
Yeah.
certain stories, certain stories to
Sure.
not be unraveled. But that's what's going on, because when a crime happens and it's clearly a crime against a person, to suppress that and call it something else, it's an agenda, it's a bias.
Yeah,
That
definitely.
in it, we were talking previously about the hanging. You said that there was a hanging on Juneteenth of a
Yeah.
black person, and it is being called or marketed as a suicide in the media. And I was mentioning when the Mike Brown, Mike after the Mike Brown case, there was a guy found hanging in a tree in California and was ruled a suicide. And there was a activist active in the Black Lives Matter camp who was found hanging, I believe, like in the South. It's different than the California case, with
Yeah.
his boxers, or at his boxers at his knees. A brick had been thrown into his room, like it was clearly aggression,
Yeah, I
and it
remember
was
this, I
ruled a
think.
suicide. It was
Yeah.
ruled a suicide as well. So hangings are still happening, and then Jewish hate crimes are happening and being called something else too.
Yeah, they're being called regular crimes. They're just
Regular
they're just
crimes.
they just ignore the hate. And then this is what blows my mind. With a lot of these, the cops are like, yeah, the people who committed the crimes aren't saying that they did it because the people were Jewish. So we can't. So there's no evidence that they did it because they were. And it's like, who the fuck is confessing to extra crimes? Like, why if I murdered Jews because he's Jewish, and then I get taken in by a detective, and then did you kill these people? Yeah. Why? Because I'm crazy. Why would you confess to killing them because they're Jewish? That's just more time. It doesn't make any sense why they're like, the people who did it said it wasn't anti-Semitism, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
must mean
yeah.
it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make a fucking lick of
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah, so they want them to come out and go, "Hey, my name is John. I committed a hate crime."
Yeah.
But okay, so what's the difference you think between the Buffalo shooter writing a fucking 180-page manifesto saying this is why I'm killing these people, and then like those boys who stole the car and drove it into the Jewish place of learning? Like, why would one person write a manifesto confessing and another person say, "Oh, I
Quite simply, for me, level of education, exposure to hit, he probably saw his dad read the newspaper or books growing up or some shit. Those kids all met in juvie. I don't want to stereotype too hard because I really don't know them, but if you go and look at those kids and you're like, fuck it, I'm a stereotype, then go check those kids out. They were never like, those kids were never gonna make anything out of their lives anyway, because life, what is so, yeah, they were trapped in something else than Kyle
what should I
Rittenhouse is.
Google? What
You
should I Google to
you
find
should
that
Google
case?"
Colorado Jew murdered, and maybe Cleveland Heights. Throw in Cleveland Heights,
Okay.
but or Colorado Jewish teenager murdered. I think it's in
Cleveland
Denver.
Heights.
Yeah, he's just
So
from
what's the Cleveland Heights one?
he's from Cleveland Heights, but he was going to school in Colorado at this yeshiva.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and he's Orthodox. So that, by the way, this is an Orthodox institution. These are the Jews that look Jewish. These are the Jews who are by far targeted the most for anti-Semitism, along with
For
Jews
sure.
who are out there and just proud of being Jew. Like, these dudes are the ones you go for because you can tell that they're fucking Jewish. Yeah.
Shmuel Silverberg was killed
Yep.
at Yeshiva Torres. How do you say Chaim?
Man,
Chaim?
I don't know. I didn't go to
In
synagogue ever, so I don't know.
in Denver on Tuesday, police say they believe the suspects chased him into the school where they shot him. Shot at. Police say he was shot at random, and it was not a bias motivated crime.
Yeah,
This
of
is Fox
course.
8 News. Fox 8 News. I'm reading from. The suspect's crime spree involved a business burglary, a carjacking, and another random shooting. Another random shooting. No, I don't think you run up in a synagogue
Dude,
or
that's what
run
I'm
up in a
saying.
Jewish space to be random.
Run up in a church and shoot people, and I can guarantee you one thing
That's not
about that
random.
is that fucking dude. Yeah, like that's just not random. I mean, you can
Random
see
is
it
when
with
you
that.
run up in a Walmart because everybody is in
Yeah,
Walmart.
that
You don't know
dude. There
who you
was a
getting in
dude.
Walmart.
There was a dude who ran up into that black church years ago and shot
Yeah.
black people, and it wasn't because it was a fucking church. It was because it was a black church.
Black church for sure.
And this is just clearly like I don't know how much clear to me, and it's even frustrating because one of these Jewish organizations, the Anti-Defamation League, who works with law enforcement across the country as kind of like, this is going to be complex, but because they're going to use it, but basically they're like modern day Judenrats, which is essentially the people that work with, like Hitler would set up these things, these organizations, these Jewish organizations, so that he could give some Jews some semblance of control and power while he was, but also amongst these Judenrats, amongst these Jewish councils, you had some people that were good who were trying to infiltrate the system and stall as much as possible. And you had, like all humans, you had some people that weren't. And then you had everything in between. And the ADL is kind of in this kind of Judenrat position where they're working closely with the FBI. They're working closely with the law enforcement agencies of America, a country that is not, a country that genocides people. And they are trying to make it so that they can, some of them are trying to do good, and some of them, I swear to God, have got to just be trying to profit off of the situation in some kind of way. I wouldn't condemn ADL. I would condemn individuals in ADL, but this group stands by the cops on their decision that it isn't anti-Semitism. And it's like, ADL, if it's not you, who's supposed to stand up for us if it's not you, dude? Like, you need to be pressing this police organization to admit that this is at least very much points to a hate crime. By the way, in the 1980s, I believe in Denver, definitely in Colorado, there was a Jewish man who was murdered. He was virulently against anti-Semitism, and he had a new show in which he would constantly attack anti-Semitism. He was murdered, and some historians point to that action in the 80s as the buildup to the dude that blew up that IRS tax building because he was like, the Jews control everything. Like, it basically, like, through this, they found out about this, like, really well organized structure of violent, militant white supremacist organizations that they never went after. And the Jewish guy who got murdered, his killers never got charged because one of them died in a shootout. And he was the one, like, they were like, okay, well, we can't get these other two guys because there's no evidence that they had said that he had done the killing. So now we can't charge these guys. Basically, I just think it's fact. Like, there's a long history of anti-Semitism in Colorado. There's a long history of white supremacy in Colorado, just as in all of America.
Highland Park, Illinois, July 4th shooting had an anti-Semitic incident earlier this year.
Yes.
In April, police said flyers appeared in the area and surrounding communities on Yom HaShoah, the Day of Holocaust Remembrance. The flyers appeared. What did the flyer say? Highland Park police pledged to work with other suburban police departments and the FBI to investigate.
Yeah, you know what? I actually tried to figure out what the flyer said too, just quickly Googling things, and I couldn't. But there have been flyers being placed everywhere across the United
In that
States. There,
community.
yeah, no, across the United
Across the
States
United
right now.
States.
Just this past, the second Roe v. Wade got overturned. The flyers fucking everywhere because
And what are the flyers saying? They're just
the flyers are
white
saying that
supremacy shit.
every aspect of gun control is Jewish, is what these newest flyers are saying. And then they point out every single Jew in the government who's trying to who's trying to change the system so that there's stricter gun laws. Yeah, so I was talking about the flyers because they say that every aspect of gun control is Jewish, and then they put every Jew who they feel that works in government who they feel is attached to stricter gun laws. And there's a fair amount because Jews tend to lean liberal. That's what happens when we're trying to make life easier for minorities, us. And so you do have a good number of Jews who are trying to enforce stricter gun laws, but all these flyers are going around saying that it's like us that's doing it. But because Jewish people are thought to be controlling the government, if we're trying to enforce stricter gun laws, that means we are trying to prepare the American people to be oppressed. So we're taking away their guns. That's what these people are thinking. Any Jew involved with taking away my guns is involved with keeping us oppressed. So that's
Controlling
current.
us.
Yeah, which is, I mean, some very old anti-Semitism, but that's what a lot of the flyers are saying. But also, every aspect of QAnon is anti-Semitism. QAnon is Trump's. It's like the far right conspiracy theory group. You ever heard of QAnon?
Absolutely. They wear the little masks.
Yeah, that's they wear little masks. Are you thinking of Anonymous?
Oh, wrong. I'm wrong. You are correct. Yes, I'm thinking of Anonymous. Or
Yeah.
I thought I was thinking of Q. Yeah, I'm thinking of Anonymous.
Yeah, QAnon you've probably heard of, just if anything on the fringes of.
Oh yeah, I'm on the images. I don't know these people. They have American flags with the letter Q on it. I don't know these people.
Yeah, it's like this idea that Trump is a savior who's been sent to
Basically, the people who stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
that's the if Black Lives Matter connects a bunch of different organizations. This is probably not a great comparison, but whatever. If Black Lives Matter connects a bunch of different organizations, but there's no real, then it's like QAnon would probably, everyone that's there, they might not be part of the same white supremacist organization, but they're like all probably connected through QAnon. Like it is the blanket movement of this crazy far right group that really has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, except that it is in constant opposition to Black Lives Matter. But QAnon, everything they say is anti-Semitism, and yeah. I'm starting to get the sense that you might like. I remember something that I found is that anti-Semitism is so internalized in our society that when I start talking about anti-Semitic tropes, people don't realize that they're anti-Semitism. They just thought they were tropes. Like I remember having a conversation once with someone, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, the stereotype that Jews are like weak and feminine." Like the men are weak and feminine and emasculated. That stereotype. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I mean, have you ever seen Family Guy? Like the Jew in Family Guy is making fun of the stereotype that is applied to Jews all the time. Like it's so deeply ingrained. If I said, what's a Jewish stereotype? And you said, I don't know. And then I said, okay, out of these 10 people, who do you think looks Jewish? You're going to look for like the short, masculine, like feminine, I guess. I don't know. You're going to look for the guy who's not like an imposing, the first person that comes to mind is not a bodybuilder. You know what I mean? Certainly not a bodybuilder.
Right.
It's probably a guy who you'd think is just book smart and can't really do much shit else. Like these things are so ingrained that it's sometimes amazing because I'll be talking about anti-Semitism and people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like the the babies, the QAnon talks about how politicians are stealing babies' blood, which is a real thing that's happened in history, which is absolutely batshit crazy. But every proven instance of people,
I do think the Clintons
yeah, and
are
I'm that makes sense.
sometime dabbling in Haitian baby blood,
Yeah.
just for funsies, for fun ritual
I
stuff.
don't think that the Clintons are, because I feel like the Clintons are a Western medicine kind of people, and I feel like Western
But
medicine, when I'm talking about, I mean like,
blood
yeah,
magic is Wicca
yeah,
is
but
blood magic.
it's not really like it's not like scientific medicine. It's like lore and mythology and that kind of shit. Like we,
Wicca.
yeah, I really don't. I feel like they'd be
You don't
more.
think they're into Wicca?
No, but
They
I
would
think
be
they're
into
into like,
something.
I don't think the shit that they're into is really any better, to be entirely honest with you. I
But
don't
like, if
think
we
what
look
they're
at, for
into is
example,
better than that.
if we look at Skull and Bones, which is the society that Bush was a part of at, what is it, Yale?
I guess
Like
I think I've heard that. Yeah.
Skull and Bone Society, like he's like, that's not a myth. That's like he has pictures graduating with Skull and Bones. That's a secret society. I mean, Skull and Bones sounds like next would might be blood and bones, skulls and blood.
You
I guess
know
my point is,
the
I think they're doing rituals, even though they're Western. They're doing magic with people's skull and bones.
I don't think that's what they're doing. I think if they were going to be doing it, they'd be going to a hospital and doing that thing where you can get like, where you can
Oh, you
like
think they're like doing
refresh your blood.
transfusions?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's what I
I
meant.
think
When
they're
I said
doing that
Western, I didn't
too.
mean, yeah.
That's what you okay. You meant
Yeah.
like modern, like kind of
Yeah,
more
like, yes. Like
what's
it's,
that
I
word I'm
don't
looking-
want, yeah.
dubious. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but also in broad
I think they're
fucking
doing
daylight.
both.
You think they're
In
doing
broad
both?
daylight, right? I think
I
they're
know you
doing
think they're doing both.
both. You know. I know
Yeah.
that you know that I know that I think that they're
Yeah.
doing both. We can move on.
I mean, and there's because at the
Only
end of the day,
because-
we'll never
only
know
because
unless
I
they
do
let us know.
believe- Yes. But
Yeah.
I do believe that people pay homage to, not that they like are heavy practitioners, but it's kind of like when you go to, if he went to China, if a president went to China, he would like indulge in the Chinese rituals and customs for that moment. I do think that they kind of tip their hats to like blood rituals and stuff. They might
Well,
do
I
it
think that
sometimes.
I hear you. Here's what I think. I think the Western world engages in human sacrifice, and that's what you see with the way that we treat poor people and minorities. I think I think the way Jewish people get cyclically sacrificed for the purpose of continuing the problem in society. Okay,
For
we're going to
sure.
kill a bunch of these Jews so that we don't solve any of our
Yes.
problems. I think they do the same
Yes.
thing to a certain extent with black people. I think they do it, except the sacrifice isn't like mass sacrifice.
Those are the
I think that's what it
sacrifices
is.
and rituals.
That's where I see the evilness that they have.
That's what it is too. I 100,000% agree that that is what it is. Like that
Yeah.
type of political human sacrifice. That's more like a long-term political.
Because that's who
effect.
we've criticized.
I agree.
We criticized Persia for human sacrifice. We've criticized so many people so hard for human sacrifice.
But I do think after the gerrymandering and after the murders and all the things you're talking about, I do think they get together over steak and put a little shot glass of blood and like commence.
See,
it with
I
like a
don't,
little
but
drink of
I've
blood.
seen so much of what you're talking about. Because growing up in DC, I would be around H Street every once in a while. I've been handed the black supremacist pamphlets. I know that I've seen.
You're
I've
like,
seen.
I know what you're talking about because I saw
Yeah.
the pamphlets you're reading.
I see. Yeah, I've seen.
But I don't read those pamphlets. It's actually, where do I get
Yeah,
these
but you
ideas
didn't.
that they're drinking
yeah,
little
but I
baby's
know, also
blood?
know where you're from, and I feel like it
I don't
sometimes
know, I don't
bleeds in.
remember.
But also, you could be right.
It's not the pamphlets I'm getting it from. It's because I'm witchcraft adjacent. Like there are like witches in California in their apartment.
Why do you think
doing
you're a
rituals
witch?
with their period blood? I don't call myself a witch, but I like follow witches on Instagram and listen to like
Yeah.
Amber Khan on, even though Amber wouldn't call herself a witch. All I know is that the way my mind thinks is if it's happening in the world, those people like the Clintons, it's not above them. And so
Yeah.
I know that they're like women in their apartments doing rituals on the full moon with their period blood. I'm not so like white women, black women, Indian women, Native American women. So I'm like, if women doing blood rituals exist all over the world, why would the Clintons
Why would it not exist?
averse to try it?
But that's why I said, like, I feel like it's, well, because they're not that kind of white. I feel like the witches that, like, when I think of white Wiccan women, because, like, I guess, you know, a lot of them don't say we're not witches, we're Wiccan or fucking whatever.
Like, you think, like,
but
Becca,
like,
Becca is definitely making soup with her period blood. Hi, Becca. Hope you listening to this.
She's definitely around some Wiccan people. I mean, that's cool. Like for me, I know that witches and the perception of witches is largely based off of, like, I hate to say it, but it's largely based off of
Jewish
Jews.
Stereotype.
Yeah. So when you tell me, like, there's white women in history who have been attracted to a minority group and some of the mysticism that's there and have been attracted to, like, that doesn't blow. Of course, there's white witches. That 100%, and they're doing some stuff. But to me, what it connects them is the fact that they're doing it in opposition to the patriarchy, which I think is where, because Jewish women didn't live under the same patriarchy, so you had Jewish women sometimes being educated, and shit. Like, you just had different things, and then you had Jewish women being burned at the stake. All this shit. I just feel like that's what connects them is this opposition to the normal,
So you're seeing a dissonance between those two groups. Like, the Clintons are not in opposition; they're actually upholders. But what I believe as an occultist, what we're taught is that subversion is something that the government does. So even though what your practice is originally against what I stand for, I'm going to take it and use it to enforce what is originally it was meant to.
I say, man, you got to go to Asia. I'd be like, Clintons, go to China. Because they have.
I think they have. I think they be drinking blood in China on on certain days to consolidate the election. What does consolidate the election mean? Consummate. And aren't these like also aren't these Catholic adjacent people? Aren't these Catholic adjacent people?
You said Catholic?
Who aren't they
do
like
blood rituals every Sunday? That could be very
eating the cracker and drinking the blood. Like, they're not.
No, that's skeptic. That's
foreign.
No, when you say all this stuff, that's why I go. Yeah, that's why this shit. That's why your theories are so convincing. But I'm not necessarily convinced. But if, like, this is this is what would happen.
My theories are convincing, but you're not convinced. Then they're not convincing.
They are convincing. I'm just not easily convinced.
But you're not convinced.
Yes, but that's because I don't trust. I don't trust some movement shit. I don't trust a lot of movement-y things. And these are theories that come around. These are theories that come around with, like, lots of people getting together and being like, "What if this shit happened?" And then because I've heard
also, like, I don't.
Multiple people have this perspective.
But it sounds like to me you're saying that these things are a bit like stereotypes that were made in a racist pot.
No.
I think
that's not what I'm saying.
Ghanaian presidents be drinking blood. Everybody can get this blood. I think everybody in power be drinking blood.
Yeah,
for fun on vacation. It's the Chinese, the Mexican, everybody. I'm not just taking this on like Jews.
No, I hear what you're saying. Of course you're not pegging it on Jews, first of all, because we were talking about the Clintons for a long time. Unless you're deeply a white supremacist, But you know my first person who I thought of, so there was she's recognized as one of the women serial killers. It's this Hungarian woman. She was a noble woman, and she was known to like torture and kill her servants, and then I believe bathe in their blood to retain beauty. And that's what I was saying. Like, that's what they're doing. I just think they're doing it in like a hospital chair. I think they're using blood, but I just think they're doing it in like a hospital chair.
But Nathan, like, I do too, like.
Yeah, that's why we get along.
What's the difference?
The difference
between doing it in a hospital chair, but it's the beginning. No, you don't think they're like putting on cloaks and a fire and lighting candles. Yeah. You think they're just walking into the office, getting it, and leaving. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I don't think they realize. Like, I don't think they've ritualized it, because I don't think they even realize like what they're doing. I don't think, like, you
don't think it's conscious. Like,
I don't think it's
this ritual.
Yes, exactly. I think it's just like built into the way that we do shit. Yeah,
ritual. Okay, it's not a
it's like we're about to go hit the hospital. It'd be like, where's this blood come? Well, it's like a bunch of poor people they're giving blood and shit. So yeah,
but that shit can't work. I mean, but Nathan, it has to be some type of ritual behind it, because this is me trying to be convincing again, or persuasive. They're ugly as shit, so it's definitely not working. It's definitely not working. Wow. If you keep going to that hospital and leaving that chair and you look like that, you gotta believe that the power you're getting is not physical. It has to be in the spiritual realm somehow, because you're ugly as shit still. So if they're doing blood transfusion, what do they think they're doing? It's not getting pretty. They don't think they're retaining beauty. They might think. And I don't even
like, to be honest with you, what I would be more suspicious of with the Clintons is flat out murders and like back deal communications with other people that are flat out murdering. I mean, they might not even be that. This is like this. They might not be in organ selling, for the same reason why I get confused why black people who make a ton of money will still be talking about selling drugs. Why would you be selling drugs if you can afford not to? Why would you be doing it if you can afford not to? The smartest criminals in the world aren't out here selling organs like that and fucking like the people who are out there selling organs. If they fuck up, their boss comes down on them. Like, but who's the boss? Like, that's why I just feel like I feel like they're above. I feel like white privilege has put them above organ selling. I feel like they're above a lot of the nastier things to a certain degree, but I just think they are nasty. I don't think it puts them yes, I don't think it puts them above being the ringleader for the rings of organ selling. Okay, once again, you know what I'm saying? We'll never know, but this is what I want to say.
Like, they're not selling the organs, but they're overseeing that they make sure that trade still exists on Earth, and then if that trade gets threatened, or we're trying to become super humanitarian, they're gonna step in like, no. We sell organs.
And that's when the argument, that's when you start arguing, like, how much do they realize that they're evil? Like, how much of it is intentional versus how much of it is taken over? Do they realize that they're supporting a government that has an impossible job? Because it's impossible to end crime, and when you have poverty, right? It's impossible it's impossible to like end a lot of systemic problems the way we do shit.
In the same vein that you say they are above organ selling, they're also like, okay, so once you go above that, what knowledge do you come into? You're no longer a low life criminal, so you are a what? You have to be initiated into knowledge
is power. I mean,
right, and I think they have
people with information. They have information that's worth money. Yeah, for sure. Information. I mean, they were meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. They were meeting with a dude who ran a racket of sex slave trade or whatever the fuck we call it now. But they were like, they were doing that shit. Trading,
but they know who is.
But they know who is.
They know who is.
And then
with that knowledge, they're not just holding it. They're playing chess and checkers with it somehow.
Almost definitely.
That's why they need to know it, because they're wielding it.
Because that's the thing, like, when we were saying they're above other people, they're not.
Changed.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's not about what we were talking about at all. Here's what I was going to say. This is what's going to happen if we found out if we find out right now, if someone calls us and goes, hey, by the way, everything that Kara thought about the Clintons is true, and here's the proof, and it turns out all of it was true, here's what would happen. I would go, oh, okay. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
Like, if it happened, I wouldn't be like, what? I would just be like,
Right.
well, I guess I owe Kara a beer or something. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it would just be another day in finding out how shitty, this situation
Oh
is.
God.
But it's like,
Oh
you know.
God. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't
So
wanna
let's go back to
know.
the terrible thing that happened. I mean, how can we connect this to the Jewish thing? Is that in this podcast anymore? Did we do homage to that?
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
that podcast. Jewish synagogue employee is among 6 of the victims of the Highland Park 4th of July shooting. Out of 6 of the victims, the Israeli council say as many as 4 were Jews.
Okay, wait, hear me out. Hear me out for something real quick. The Jewish people I saw, again online, I'm not sure if this is totally true, but I saw a lot of them came over after World War II, after the Holocaust. So a lot of these Jewish people at that time weren't allowed to live wherever they wanted. They would have had to be living in communities that they were assigned to, essentially. So these Jewish people were coming. They were living in this community because that's where they were allowed to. And then on top of that, they're immigrants. To me, it smacks of course, there's a 4th of July parade here because that's what you do when you're an immigrant trying to fit in and act like it.
Assimilate.
Especially after you were tortured out of Europe, which is what every Jew essentially who was forced out of Europe because of the Holocaust was essentially tortured out of Europe. But like,
And assimilating.
yeah, so like that's the added pressure. So get this, man. So then years later, this white supremacist comes and shoots up your fucking celebration of their fucking culture. Like,
Holiday.
we're celebrating
Right.
your fucking holiday, and then you come shoot us up because you think we control the government, but they're all there. The only reason they live there is because of the Holocaust. We didn't want to leave Europe. Most of us didn't want to go to Palestine. It's unreal, man. But
It's nonsensical. It's nonsensical. It's a conundrum.
It's
And it's history repeating itself on a different level. You know what the
Yeah.
T is? What I want to know, why did the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, rule this not a hate crime? What is the
I'm sorry,
rationale?
the ADL ruled it not a hate crime. This
I thought
shooting
that's
just
what
now.
you two said.
No. They
The 4th of July.
that young boy who was murdered in Colorado, who the guys got out of their
Right.
car and chased him into the school. They said that
Sorry.
was
Even
when-
that still stands. Why did they rule that not a hate crime?
because the
Because
cops
there was no
said there's
manifesto?
because that's actually pretty much it. I mean, it's because the people didn't confess to anti-Semitism.
They didn't confess
so
that it's
the
a hate
ADL didn't want to cross law enforcement by saying, "Hey,
'cause
this
there's no
was it."
proof, quote unquote.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
wanted to because they're like, "We're working with law enforcement." It'd be like sometimes you're just bending over, but the thing with them is like,
you can just give me, we're not sure if it was a, but you can't say it's not a
Yeah,
hate
it's-
crime.
yeah.
You don't
I
know
mean,
either way. You don't. Yeah.
what the ADL said was it's not a hate crime, but regardless, Jews feel this everywhere, so we just want to, which is
Okay,
still,
okay.
it's like,
But you weren't
I
happy
just
with that.
I just need if ADL isn't doing it, I need them to actively be supporting an organization that is really
that is
pushing this shit.
Yeah, and they can't do it if they're in bed with a certain conglomerate.
Yeah,
that says
which is why I
otherwise.
try
You know,
not
you
to come
can't.
down too hard, because in my mind, honestly, when people say, "Oh, the Jews with the ADL, they're working with the FBI, they're evil," in my mind, I'm like, you're telling me the one racial minority that has the ability to infiltrate the
Yeah.
FBI, and you're not gonna
Yeah.
listen to a single thing they're gonna say. They're doing
they're
this
not
for
evil.
like they're
They're
not
the
100%
inside- they're the
evil.
inside
Yeah,
man.
like
They're the
they're
inside man.
trying to make this shit better, just like Obama. Like Obama, I give him some credit because I'm like, well, the dude was trying. Should no one try? What
was
happens
this nigga
then?
trying to do? What was Obama trying to do?
I think he was trying to make America better. But I mean, it's hard to say. But I gotta get like I feel
don't
like if
know.
I know
Like, I'm
you
not the
don't
one
know.
to ask. I don't. I know you know.
You
I
just said
don't
that the
know.
Clintons are clinging cups
Drinking
of blood, which means that the Obamas would be right next to him, like clink clink. You know,
Exactly.
I know that you're
in my
not.
theory.
I know.
But honestly though, in my lexicon, and now I just using words that don't even go in sentences, but that's fine. In my y'all gonna put it together. In my mind's eye, in my third eye, I don't place the Obama in the group drinking blood. Not because that makes any logical sense. Because
yeah. I thought you were gonna say not because they're black, and I was gonna be like, "Oh, sure, not because." Listen, it's because they're black. I mean, it's gotta be, Kara. I see just from knowing you as a person. Is that not it?
you know what it is? It's not because the only reason I place the Clintons in that is not because they're white. It's because I heard all those Haiti baby stories. It's like they always are in Haiti for a quote unquote hurricane. The Obamas wasn't traveling. Like Obama's wasn't always traveling to developing countries, flying out, and then after they leave, a bunch of babies go missing. That's all I'm saying. Like they don't have that kind of conspicuous mystery around why y'all always in these third world countries.
That's interesting. I'll give you that.
Whenever you leave, there's something in your. They don't have a foundation.
I'll give you
that dabbles in vaccines and blood work. Like Obama's wasn't doing that weird shit, at least up front. They were just like what Michelle was like dancing in cafeterias for obese people. Okay.
Obese children.
Children?
So I hear what you're saying though.
Their lunches.
I hear what you're saying. I thought you were going because I remember I've seen so much silly propaganda about white people drinking blood, but I hear what you're saying. That makes more sense. I'm glad we kept talking about it.
Yes.
There's layers
that they
there.
always dealing in these developing country disasters and leaving on planes, and then their secretaries are being found with like 4 babies in the jet plane that don't belong to them, and I'm like, why did y'all take these babies?
Why'd you guys take the babies? Hey Clinton, can I just ask you one fucking question? Why'd you take the babies?
What's up with the 4 babies in the back of the plane? But you know,
wow,
there is a story that is confirmed that like one of their workers, and I gotta find it because it was years ago I was reading this, but that after the Clinton Foundation had left Haiti, they're on their payroll were a bunch of planes that also left Haiti, but inside these planes are people's children who basically gave up their children because they were like, well, I'm in a disaster, you could take them to America, but it's kind of like that's not how adoption works. Like you can't just put them in the. Just stuff around them happening. That's weird to me. But anyway,
I mean,
I don't like Obama because of what's happened in Gaza. He signed too many bombs. He signed the bombs, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it was Gaza, Yemen, and it was Gaza, Yemen, and wherever the else fuck America was. I mean, who knows what
that. It was a lot of that. For me, that's their blood drinking. I was like, hey, he was doing a lot of destruction and drone dropping. It was a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why are you doing all of that? That's weird.
Yeah.
A little bit. I don't know.
I mean, that part of the world for so many years, I mean, had one of the most advanced and powerful empires. And part of it, I think, is just like, I mean, their empire ended at the end of World War One because they sided with the wrong people and because they were doing fucked up things. Like that's when the Armenian genocide happened too, when the Ottoman Empire did that. But like these parts of like the West, I think, was just genuinely trying to play a long game of suppressing the natural. Success of that place because
and I hate that he participated in that. I hate that is our narrative. Like, I know it's tradition, but it's like, damn, I hate this tradition. This is corny. Y'all niggas is corny. We are reaching an hour. I think this is the end of this podcast. Do you have a final thought?
I mean, we talked not as much about the anti-Semitism thing, and I didn't give as many examples as I thought I would of time. But this stuff is just continuously, it happens over and over again and it's been happening for a long time. People don't like to admit anti-Semitism is happening because then they have to admit anti-Semitism is happening. And they have to admit that they didn't get rid of it at the end of World War II. And the narrative is that like that's when America was great, right? It's like I feel like
Yes.
even liberals are like, what is happening to our country? When they look back, it's like back when white people could afford to do this, that, and the third. I mean, it was at a time when they were all lying about how they
About
dealt
how
with
great they
anti-Semitism.
were.
Yeah, they were lying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So in order to
Chickens coming
confront
home to
this,
roost.
yeah, and people don't want to do that. And we can see this over and over again with different minorities. I mean, we talked about black people and the particularly black men being hung. Like that obviously is symbolic, obviously ties to a greater historical context. I'm sure there's stuff with Latinx or Latino people, whatever you want to call. And then I'm sure it's also true for every kind of Asian person. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's gotta be similar things going on because that's how this system operates. You know what I mean? You can make
I
certain
do
predictions.
believe I do believe that the person who got hung on Juneteenth was found near a set of monkey bars. Like hung
That's
from monkey bars. So
yeah, I mean
symbolic.
that's symbolic too. I mean that's so fucked. Every time I talk about this with my friend from DC, he's like, "Yeah, and you know that happened in DC too." Like I feel like you would probably say this with any black person across all major cities. They can probably every single major city they can be like, oh yeah, I remember at one point in my fucking lifetime where there was like a black dude wound up hanging.
I'm about to post this because that's crazy that I be on social media every day and I did not hear this story. Dante Perez Jones found hanging from monkey bars on
I know, I was actually
Juneteenth.
kind of blown away too that I had not heard a goddamn thing about it. And honestly,
Damn.
if not, like I'm going
Wait,
and
where did
posting
you
on
find
social.
it? Where did you find it ultimately?
I found it because I googled black men hanging from a tree, like racism recent or something like that, because I was trying to look for
Whoa.
the specific example of when they ruled it a suicide, because this is a reoccurring thing and I knew it was a reoccurring thing. I was trying to find the one that I remembered in like 2015, but I found this dude right there, so I was like, wow, topical as hell.
Damn.
Most
5 days
The
ago.
only people talking about the fact that this isn't a Jewish neighborhood that I've seen is Jewish people. Everyone else is focused on, oh, it's a wealthy neighborhood. I guess they might start caring now that we've shot up a wealthy neighborhood. And it was like, okay,
But what about the fact? I
sure.
mean, but
What about the
yeah,
fact
but
that
it's.
it's,
I
yeah,
mean,
like, can we also
you
talk
may
about
feel
this?
like this is an excuse, but it feels like if the police department is suppressing that Jews were killed in this and not calling it out, then the general public, where are they gonna get their information from
Yeah,
if
I
the
mean,
news
that's
is
true. To
suppressing
be
it?
honest with you, you want to know how I found out? I saw a
Wow.
photo of the shooter. I
Right.
realized instantly, okay, this dude, if he has not ever been to juvie, he is definitely probably knows a motherfucker who has. If that's the case, he
Right.
almost certainly knows about anti-Semitism. Okay, let me
Right.
Google what the fuck this is, and I figured it out for my fucking
Right.
self. Because for me,
So,
that's how I get my
so you
information.
are
I'm
already
happy to,
aware. You
yeah.
saw the clues. You
I would
smelled the
like that
smoke
to
and
be
found the
where other
fire.
people are at, but I understand that it's not,
But
because
they're
most people don't
not.
care about Jews, because most people don't want to do that. We've already talked about that. But like, yes,
But this
it's,
podcast is helping
yeah.
people see that there is
Hopefully.
fire where there's smoke, and hopefully, yeah.